Hey everybody, this is Rick Lumack. We're in week 8 of the session, and I'm actually underground here in the tunnels below the legislature, and I'm with my esteemed colleague, Spencer Chandra Herbert.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the basement of the building.
Yes, it's very interesting down here. It's kind of creepy, but
okay, yeah, tunnels and pipes and hidden secret places. We'll show you one of them.
Yeah, we'll walk down here a bit. So this week in the legislature, we had the pleasure of having Governor Inslee from Washington come and join us, and he spoke in the House for like 15 minutes about our shared priorities, Washington and British Columbia. He talked a lot about the importance of taking action on climate change and working together on initiatives around growing the tech sector and things like that.
High-speed rail potentially down to Seattle, Vancouver, back and forth, of course. A new float plane, which is being arranged to get people commuting back between Seattle and Cole Harbour in my constituency. But you know, I think the most exciting thing was, and most important thing, was really his talk around climate change and our shared interest in fighting climate change to protect our economic interests, but also the environment that we love. You know, the orcas in the Salish Sea, the salmon, and so many other things that are reasons we call this home.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show you, this is something that could happen to you if you come to the legislature and do something crazy. This over here, which we'll show you in a second, is a jail cell. You can see the bars here now. This was set up, I'm told, so that if a legislator, if your MLA, I know he never would do it, did something completely outrageous, so outrageous that I guess they had to end up being locked up for somebody else to come take them away. I don't think it's ever actually been used by an MLA. I've heard somebody was locked up many years ago until the local security, until the police could arrive. But an interesting throwback to the days when MLAs had to, the Sergeant at Arms of this House served a more law enforcement function. So. But we digress.
Yeah.
Aside from the visit from Washington Governor Jay Inslee, this week we also finally passed into law very shortly, of course, the Electoral Finance Act to ban big money from politics, which I think is incredibly exciting and, as we know, so necessary in BC, where for too long the government of the day was seemingly run by big donors, often corporations. And really it should be about the public, of course, not who has the most money, but every voter. So,
And what's interesting about that actually is that there were a number of amendments that were brought forward, and in the spirit of collaboration, and this is something that Spencer talks a lot about in the House, and working together with the other parties. The Green Party brought forward some amendments, and we even took some, I think there was one that was a suggestion from the Liberals as well. So, you know, we're working together to make the legislation better, and I think that went through third reading today, right?
That's right. Yeah. So no, that's incredibly important, and I know something many people were quite actively supporting. Another thing which happened this week, you probably heard about, was
walk and talk.
Well, walk and talk. Was the National Housing Strategy was announced by the federal government. You know, we in the BC NDP have been calling for seemingly decades now for a national housing strategy, because in BC, housing affordability has got to be about as worse as it can get. You can't get a place in many cases, and we needed a federal partner, and we do need a federal partner to help make this real. And so, thankfully, the Prime Minister and his housing minister came through with a plan. We've got to identify where we as a province can collaborate, of course, with municipalities and First Nations governments as well, because we want to get going, and it looks like finally we have a federal partner who's willing to work with us. And so I'm excited for the days ahead, because clearly the need for action is beyond years ago. We really have to get going.
Exactly. We have a question actually from somebody that's watching. Is this area available for public viewing?
Yes and no. I think I've taken school groups through here before, and certainly shown them around. Generally, you couldn't go down on your own time, but if you had one of us
Yeah,
to take
come-
you on a
come
tour,
visit us.
come
We'll
see
take
us in
you.
Victoria. We're going to take a detour here to head towards the parliamentary dining room.
Oh, the dining room. Right?
Because that's the place
Secret
many
way-
people in the public would know and have been visitors to if they have made it to the legislature. All right, the door here.
So we're actually outside now in a little courtyard.
Yes. The legislature was put together piece by piece. So they started with the main legislature buildings, the library, and then they've added on all these other portions. That's why we're going through corridors and ending out in the public and in the open air, and now we're back inside in the dining room corridor down in the basement of the legislature. I think we'll stop here for just a minute. If I could, I don't know if it was this hallway or this door behind us or which door it was, but these were the offices when the NDP had just 2 MLAs elected back in 2001. The Premier, the BC Liberal Premier of the day, decided that they shouldn't have real offices, and so he jammed them next to the fast food French fry fryer down in the basement for a couple of years. Eventually, they realized that that was too arrogant and the public was having none of it and thought you should treat opposition parties with respect, and so they did get better offices, but that's where we are right now.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I didn't even know that.
So odd histories in this place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so we are 1 week, I think we're 1 week away from, what would you call it, the House Verizon?
Yeah, until this session finishes, unless future issues come to the fore, and then the chances are we will be back for the new budget in February, unless, of course, an emergency requires us back here after this week. So,
good.
Aside from that, come visit. It's
Come
a great
visit.
place, and we've got certainly a lot more to do, that's for sure.
Yeah. And thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Take care.